everyone, this is Chris Cummins of Glow Imagery. I'm the chief photographer and owner here of the Kansas City Portrait Photography Studio. And today's video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about smartphone photography. And I get asked this question quite a bit is Chris, what kind of things can we do with our pictures that we make with our camera phones that can help them be a little bit better? What are some ways that we can edit them and make them look a little bit more snazzy? And it's a very common question. And part of the problem is that the challenge is that there are a lot of really good ways to do that. And there's a lot of great apps out there that can help you edit your photography, help you edit your smartphone images. And what I'm going to do basically is just show you the way that I do it. And it doesn't mean it's necessarily even the best way, but my real goal here is to help maybe elevate your understanding of what kind of editing is going to help your photographs be a little bit better, and kind of look at some of the fundamentals there, because when you understand that, you'll be able to not only make great smartphone images that much better, but also be able to improve photography that you'd make with any kind of camera device, be it a real high-end digital single lens reflex type camera, the DSLRs, or even just a point and shoot, or any kind of camera. There are some tried and true fundamentals that I want to introduce you to here as far as editing your images and what to look for. So let's get started. Right here you're looking at my personal phone. This is an iPhone 5, and what we have here is my home screen, and as you can see, lots of stuff on here, but right here is sort of where my main camera photography stuff is. And right here is the camera app, and this comes native. This is comes installed with almost every iPhone out there. I don't know of one that doesn't have it, but this is sort of the basic camera app that comes with these smartphones. It's a very good app. It'll do a lot of nice things for you, but I happen to prefer a third-party app, and you can see it right up here. It's called Camera Plus. And not only will it help me make better photographs, it gives me a little bit more functionality, Camera Plus does, versus the regular camera app, but it also has some really neat editing features, and that's really where I spend most of my time on, to make my smartphone images just a little bit better and to do some editing on them. So let's open that up, and we'll kind of show you how it works here. When you first install this, they'll go through some prompts. They'll want you they'll ask you for permission to go to your photo stream. They'll ask you for permission to do location services and those kinds of things. So just work your way through those. I think those are fairly self-explanatory. But this has been set up here, and what I'm going to do, we've opened up the app here. So I don't know if I mentioned it. It's about $2 on the App Store, so it's not a free app, but it's just but it's a very low-cost app and a very powerful app for what that investment is. But we've got it opened up here, and so what I want to do is import a photograph from my camera stream, and we're going to kind of go through some editing motions there, and really kind of my aim here, like I said, is to help you kind of understand the basics that we want to apply to any kind of photograph that we're trying to edit. So here we go. What we're going to do is go over here up to the plus symbol. Okay, and we're going to go down to, let's pick, I really like this one of my daughter. I took a photograph of her a few weeks ago on the deck, and she was having a little swim party. And we're going to click on that, import it, and right here it brings you in here and gives you 4 options to do with it. You can immediately share it, save it, do these different things with it. Since we're going to be talking about what we do for editing, naturally we're going to click on this one, the edit. Do a little touch on there, and it brings up this really interesting suite of services on there. Now, if you remember that camera app, if you remember the Photos app on your iPhone, just about any app will give you a automatic, you just touch it once and the app will go through there and do this, what I call an idiot-proof edit. And sometimes they look really great, and there really is no need to get into the nitty-gritty stuff we're going to get into But I do feel that if you're going to take your photography up to the next level, that kind of one-touch editing that kind of one-touch editing sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So let's kind of exert a little more control and also learn kind of some of those basics we keep talking about here. So with this particular app on Camera Plus, what I want us to do is this top row right here is a bunch of kind of presets, and we're not going to worry about those just yet, although they are really nice and fun to play with. Like, let's see here, like we could touch this portrait one right here and look and see what it does to the image, and that's pretty neat. I think that's an improvement over what we were working with earlier. So sometimes, you know, you don't need to go into the nitty gritty, but we're going to do that here just for the learning benefit of it. Down on the bottom is really where we're going to go, and specifically where we're going to go is right here on the lab. We're going to click on that, and it's going to bring up this whole new row of options on there, and a lot of things we can work on there. And what I would like to do is just kind of give you an overview. This is where I spend most of my time, folks, is on this, on things like brightness and contrast. I'll spend time on temperature. I'll spend time with exposure right here. These are really, really neat, and they really follow what professional photographers have to work on quite a bit. Tint's another one, to be able to make their images give you that really professional look and really great quality. So what we're going to do here is take a moment and talk a little bit about these basics I keep on mentioning. And really there are three principal areas you want to look at whenever you're trying to decide how you want to edit an image. And you want to study, the first thing you want to study is what we call the highlights, and those are the very bright parts of the image. The second area we want to look at is the shadows, and those are the very dark parts of the image, even the parts that are almost black. And then the third area we want to study and get just right and look great is what's called the midtones, and that's generally where you're going to have a lot of facial skin tones and some things like leaves and some of the things you see here in this image. A lot of those are midtones, like here on the wood, that's a midtone. But the midtone that's most important usually, especially when dealing with people photography, is always going to be the skin, especially the skin around the face, because the faces really are where the heart and soul of most of your images. I mean, they really are the spirit of a great photograph of a person, is really the skin and the face, so, and the face itself. And that's really where the midtones are. Now, let's backtrack for a second and talk a little bit about highlights. The highlights are the very bright parts of the image. In this particular image, they're right here around her neck because the sun's hitting that directly. It's lighting up the back of her hair a little bit here, but you can still see it's not purely white. It's almost white, like it's so bright, it's almost purely white. But the parts that are, you can see in there a little bit of the hair. You can make out a little bit of color here on her collar, but I'll be honest with you, whatever we do with this image, this part is already pretty much maxed out and pretty much what we call maximum white. But you can see some white areas here that we can affect, and it's like these little parts of the deck that are coming through these wood rails. That's another highlight areas. So we're going to play with those a little bit now and just kind of start there and see some of the things that we can do. And a powerful way to really figure out what you want to do with your highlights is to play with the exposure. Is play with this sort of exposure level on a Camera Plus app. Again, there are tons of apps out there with different kinds of capabilities to them, but I prefer this one. This is the one I use and recommend for you too. So I just, on this one, moved the exposure a little bit to the right, and by doing that, it makes it just a little bit brighter exposure. Now, what happened to the image, and it's maybe hard to see on this video, is that we made this part pretty bright. This part was already maximum white. It's a little bit more, but we also brought up some of the midtones and some of the shadows. Exposure moves the entire, all three of those categories. It adjusts all three of those categories. Categories being highlights, midtones, and shadows. So I kind of like that, and there's a lot of bouncing around playing with stuff when you're working with editing a photo. So right here we're going to go with brightness, and I find that brightness tends to have more of an effect on the highlights and the midtones. So by dragging that a little bit to the right, we're going to be brightening up her face even more. Now again, this is sort of your creativity as an artist, as the person that created the image, of how you saw it. And so using these tools and getting more familiar with them is going to elevate your ability to visually communicate what it was you intended when you took that image. And for me, with this particular image, it is my daughter, Charlotte, her face, and this wonderful, cute little expression and that beautiful infant skin that she has. Hey, I'm biased, folks. I won't pretend I'm not being objective here. I'll pretend that I'm. I just love her. So anyway, here's her skin, and I really want, when you, that first nanosecond you see the image, for your eye to go right to her eyes and her face and that wonderful, darling little expression she has. And so by brightening it, you're going to be brightening up the midtones, which is where a lot of her face is here. You're going to be adding emphasis to that to bring the eye right into that area of the image. So I think I like it like there. I might make it a little bit brighter. Yeah, okay. That's pretty good because we still got some work to do on it. So we've played with exposure and brightness and contrast. What I'd like to do next is keep moving to the right. Let's work with highlights and shadows. Now, we've brightened up this image quite a bit. We've actually added exposure to it, which means that it's brighter. That means that all these parts that were kind of white are now pretty much completely white. And so if we play with this highlight detail slider, maybe there's a way we can maybe kind of keep some of those details in the hair coming forward still. Maybe we can kind of make those eyes, I don't know, let's just play with it. That's okay. I like that. Now, let's talk about the shadows now. I brought the highlights down a little bit. A common problem I see with a lot of photography people produce is that they produce very kind of flat looking images. And what I mean by flat is that there is not, you want in your image there to be a part of the image that looks completely white, and you want a part of the image that looks completely black. That's a good guideline. We can break those rules now and again, but I really like that as a really solid source of a photograph, because that follows what we see out there in the world and what our eye and our mind is seeing every day. And it just makes for a more pleasing photograph if we have a true black and a true white in there. So the shadow detail is going to have some impact on that true black. The highlight detail is going to have some impact on the true white. So let's play with it, see what happens. See what's going on here? We're bringing those shadows down. I'm going to keep sliding this to the left. I don't like the way that looks. I know you don't either. But I wanted to slide it completely to the left to kind of show you what these kinds of tools do. Now as we move it back to the right, it starts looking better. And a little bit better, right? I kind of like it right there. I'm going to have to add a little more contrast to it and some of these other things, but I like the way that looks. There's a vignette. Let's double back. Let's go back to brightness and contrast. Folks, there's a lot of this bouncing around, kind of playing with the different settings on it. And it's a lot of fun, but I want more contrast in there. And contrast means that you're just basically separating all these little parts of the image, like you're basically amplifying the differences between different parts, different tonal values on this image. That's what adjusting the contrast does. I like that a lot. This is already looking better. Now, color on an image is an important thing too, and that's where we kind of get into over here with temperature. There's a tint one over right there, but I want to play with temperature. Let's touch that, and we can slide this guy all the way to the left and see what happens. See, she went completely blue, completely strange looking. Or we can slide it all the way over to the right. Don't like that either. So let's bring it back to 0, neutral. to me, the way the image looks, and maybe it's hard to see with this particular image in this video, is that she looks a little bit what we call cool. And cool is, or cold, and that is a photographer term for a photograph that looks a little bit blue. And so they even kind of help you out here, that they give you a snowflake right here to show you that if you slide it this way, it gets really blue. And you know how we get blue lips out there in the winter when it's really cold? Well, think of it that way. Also, we can do the opposite. We can move it over to where this flame is right here to add some heat to it, add a little bit of warmth to it. So I think this photograph is a little bit cool. That means in order to cancel that out, we need to make it a little bit warmer. So I'm going to slide it a little bit this way. See what's happening? We're getting some nice tone in her cheeks right here. A little bit more. Let's just see what happens here. Oh, I like that a lot. You're bringing out some of the wood here a little bit better. It just starts to have more of that summertime feeling towards it. Yeah, I can back it back a little bit. Yeah. What's neat is that you can see these little numbers right here as you're working through them. There we go. That looks pretty good. So what we've done here is we've corrected the highlights, we've corrected the midtones, we've corrected the shadows. I've also done a fourth step in here where I adjusted the color to give it a little bit more of a pleasing appearance there. And what's neat is that there's just a lot of playing around with these things. Now, here's another bonus tip right here. Vignette's kind of fun. You can play with that. And I do believe there is such a thing as doing too much enhancing. But I really like to kind of keep things true to how I saw them without really putting the photographer's, the editing hand into the image too much. I hope that makes sense to you. Maybe we can go into it in another video, but for the purposes of this one, wait, I'm not doing this right. Okay. Probably want to do it like this. See what's happening there? The edges, really edges are, it's very kind of what we call feathered. Look, are coming down. I don't particularly care for it quite that much. So let's try to brighten it up a little bit. So I'm doing down here. And now there's none. But let's do that and let's bring it out a little bit. Because the really important part of this photograph is off to the right here on our rule of thirds. Doing a vignette which brings in the edges, which darkens the edges quite a bit, can be a little bit risky because we end up darkening her face since her face is a little closer to this corner. But if I tug it out a little bit by pulling this slider that way, it's not such a big deal. But that's vignette. You can play with that too. But hey, I like the way that looks. I think that's considerably better than what we already started out with. That's really the way that I edit my images on the smartphone when I take my pictures there. Because I really love that Camera Plus app. I think that's a superstar app. You can do a lot of these things in Instagram. We've got Instagram over here. Instagram is a wonderful, right over there on the left, has some really powerful editing tools I like a lot. I just don't necessarily care for everything being in a square. And well, we'll do that in a different video, show how we can work around that, because I think Instagram's a lot of fun. But that's a different video. So there are tons of applications out there that can do something similar. I just happen to prefer working with Camera Plus, so I recommend giving it a shot. There's some wonderful tools involved in that app, so give it a shot there. But so yeah, we'll show you the before and after here. But if you have any questions, go ahead and write them up in the comments there. This is Chris Cummins. I'm the chief photographer of Glow Imagery. Feel free to subscribe to our channel. And thank you so much for watching this. And let's go out there and make some great pictures. Just to have a lot of fun with photography. So I'll talk with you soon. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.